Hello everyone, grand final week has arrived and this man is beside himself with excitement. Hello Billy.
How good's grand final week, Levy? It's been 30 weeks in the making and now we're finally here and we have the two best teams in the competition, the best versus the best.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, we've all been expecting this grand final and now it comes to reality. And yep. I guess the first question is, what sort of a grand final are you expecting given the quality and the calibre of these two football sides?
Wow, you can look at so many different elements. Both are great defensive teams. Both understand what it takes to win at this time of the year. And something just tells me that it's going to be a little bit different. Something tells me there's going to be a few points scored in this grand final. I've had a sneaky look at the weather in Sydney on Sunday, and it's going to be fine and 25 degrees, which is great. The surface at a core stadium right now is like carpet. It is firm. It'll suit the attacking style of football that both of these teams will bring. I'm sure it'll take a bit of a softening up period at the start of the game, and they'll both be playing conservative to build that pressure. But once the game opens up, there's too much class on the field in both of these footy teams for there not to be points scored. So I'm looking forward to seeing the attacking side of the game come to fruition throughout that middle part of the game.
We'll have a look at the couple of individuals in just a second, but let's look at the teams as a whole. We'll start off with the Panthers, and there's a bit of history at stake here. No team in the modern era has gone on to win 4 straight premierships, so the Panthers are on the cusp of greatness. They're already a champion football side, led around by Nathan Cleary. What's impressed you about the Panthers this year as opposed to some of the previous years they've featured in the grand final?
Well, probably nothing that hasn't impressed me over the last couple of years. And the biggest thing is the ability to shed players to other teams and then rejuvenate that position with some young, developed youth. They've done that year after year. They've still got this core group of players of Nathan, Jerome, Dylan Edwards, Isaiah Yeo, and the two guys that don't get spoken about a lot that will be hugely influential in this game are the two front rowers, Moses Leota and James Fisher-Harris. And there has been talk a little bit from the Panthers. I've heard Ivan Cleary and Nathan talk a little bit about what they learnt in 2020. And they learnt a lesson of playing finals football, and that's put them in good stead over the last 3 years. And they've also said that they'd been bullied a little bit in that game. And that's what they learnt from that. So there's a huge motivation for Penrith to go out there and not just win 4 grand finals in a row and be the premiers 4 times in a row. But the last team that stopped them taught them a huge lesson, and now they get an opportunity to play them again. So there's huge motivation for the Panthers. And the Melbourne Storm have been building over that last 4 years. There's only 5 players within this group that played in that grand final back in 2020, and it's going to be great. But yeah, I think for the Panthers, what's impressed me the most is just the way that they've been able to sustain their success by losing quality players.
And then the Melbourne Storm under Craig Bellamy, and do you think Bellyache was going to throw it all away and retire and put his feet up, put his slippers on? Another grand final for Craig, and the spine of the Melbourne Storm is just phenomenal to watch, and I think that's what excites a lot of people about this Melbourne Storm side.
Well, the one thing that you know about Craig is if he makes a decision to stay, he's all in. He is all in, passionate. He's there to do the best that he can possibly do, and that's what he's done. He's rebuilt this footy team. He's rebuilt this footy team over the last 4 years, off the back of Cameron Smith retiring, and they've built even this year. I think they're playing their best footy at the right time of the year. Their key position players are at the top of their game, at the top of the game. You think of Pappenhausen, Grant, Hughes and Munster. Sure, they're within a team structure and they're within the team environment that sets it up for them, but they do the rest. And they were the orchestrators, and they actually scored all the points in that preliminary final against the Roosters, 48 points, and the majority or pretty much all of them came off the back of their performances. So I think Hughes got 3 tries, Munster got 2, Pappenhausen, he scored as well. So and Grant had 3 try assists. So the good stuff comes off the key position players at Melbourne.
Yeah, and it's a testament to all the hard work put in by someone like Ryan Pappenhausen. I mean, some of the injuries that he's sustained, to think that he's got himself right, he's got his body right into another grand final. What a great story he is.
I'm so happy for him, Levy. I'm happy and I'm really proud of him. It's not easy. I understand firsthand how hard it is to endure those long-term injuries, miss out on a whole heap of footy, and then push yourself to work behind the scenes just to get back to potentially playing. He didn't even know if he was going to get back to playing. Whether his knee was going to come good, whether his broken leg. He had those concussion issues back in 2021, and he's been through the ringer, Ryan Pappenhausen, and you think if every time that you go through a bit of adversity in your life, in your career, you build some resilience. Well, he's one resilient person right now, and I'm sure he's going to enjoy this grand final week. But at the same time, he's a professional and he wants to be as good as he possibly can, and he knows what it takes to be the best player in this big game. He was the Clive Churchill medalist in 2020, and I'm sure he'll be going out there to play his role, but to perform on the big stage.
He's putting a bit of pressure on us too with his own podcast, Ryan, and Jerome Hughes and Cam Munster.
They're getting all the big guns. They got Craig Bellamy last start, didn't they?
Yeah, he wasn't too happy that they filmed it either, just quietly, apparently. That was the rumour. We moved to individuals as well. I mean, Nelson Asofa-Solomona, that tackle last weekend has earned him a 4-match suspension, so he'll miss the grand final unless he is successful in downgrading the charge twice. What are his chances, Bill?
Well, they haven't made a decision yet, have they, Melbourne, whether they're going to challenge it or not. He's been given a grade 3. He's been hit with a grade 3. If he could get that downgraded to a grade 1, he's free to play. That's where it sits. It's not the 4 matches and all this sort of stuff. Look, the compassion side of me feels really sorry for any player that misses a big game. I remember back to 2014, Isaac Luke missing the grand final. He never got the opportunity to play in another premiership. Like players put everything into their careers. They are all in, and I feel for any player that misses a grand final, whether it be through injury or in this situation through suspension. And the decision Melbourne have to make is they'll go back and look at all the other charges of a similar nature, and they'll try and compare that to Nelson's charge. And if they can find some grade 1 evidence of prior incidences that correlate with Nelson's situation, well, then they can fight that Nelson's is a grade 1. That's where it sits now. This becomes more of a legal matter rather than a rugby league matter. If they can fight that and they can convince the panel that this deserves to be a grade 1, well, they've got grounds, but that evidence has to back it up, and that's what they'll be looking at now. And if they make that decision, well, that's the way that they'll go.
Given your track record at the judiciary, maybe they should enlist the services of Billy Slater, KC.
Well, I've never taken a kick-off and I've never tackled anyone off a kick-off, so I haven't got too much experience in that regard. I tried to stay away from that part of the game, but yeah, no. And I only went to grade 11, so my lawyer status isn't quite up there either.
Well, geez, I reckon you give them a run for their money, Mr. Bellew and all those at judiciary.
I went all right in 2018.
Well, exactly. That's what I was referring to. Nathan Cleary, this shoulder, he clutched at it on the weekend. He was interviewed after the game, says he'll be fine. That's going to be one of the talking points this week, you'd think.
Well, you don't clutch at it unless you feel it. I admire Nathan's toughness. He is. That's one thing that we don't speak about a whole heap with Nathan Cleary, and you can throw Cameron Munster in that category as well. His season was over in round 10, Magic round, lying on the field with a torn groin. He's got a hip issue that he needs to have surgery on, and for those sort of players to fight through that. But let's talk about Nathan. this is not something new to Nathan, and we only found out about this injury that he's been carrying all year. We only found out about it in round 24 when he went down against the Melbourne Storm. That was only less than 2 months ago. And if we think back to 2021, he got injured, I think it was his other shoulder, in the Origin series. And he had a bit of time off. He rehabbed it, settled it down, got it strong enough, and he went out and he played his part in that premiership in 2021. So it's not foreign to Nathan to do this. It's whether that shoulder holds up. That's the biggest thing. I've played with shoulder injuries in the past and had surgery at the end of the year. They're not comfortable to play with. And if he says he's okay, that's a surface comment. He knows that he's carrying it, and I'm sure that he'll feel like he'll be okay, but it's certainly a question mark. It's not ideal, but he's been carrying it all year.
Who are some of the other individuals in these two teams that might have a big say in the grand final, Billy? I mean, it's all well and good for us to talk about some of the stars of the game. Who are some of the other players that hold the key in the decider on Sunday night?
I think that there are so many great matchups, and we'll talk about a few of them now. I think the matchups of the wingers is incredible. They're very different players. You've got Taruva and To'o, who are 3'2", but they're the two to stop. They're the go-forward guys. They are so hard to handle because they are short, they're built low to the ground, but they're so strong. They get their sets off to a good start, and finishing movements, like close to the line inside that 10-metre area, if they get the ball with a bit of space, they are so hard to stop, especially To'o. He is an incredible player. And then you've got these two giants on the other side. You've got Warbrick and Xavier Coates, where if Melbourne can get the opportunity to sit a few balls on To'o and Taruva's head, that's the advantage. Look, it doesn't happen all that often because Penrith don't gift field position away all that often, so the opposition don't get down there too much. But if they can get that opportunity and isolate those wingers, Melbourne, I think that's a huge advantage. The other battle I'm really looking forward to is Liam Martin and Ali Katoa. Like, we all know what Liam Martin brings, and he's going to set the barometer for how aggressive they are. He's going to be on the kick chases. He's going to be leading all that effort side of the game. But Eli Katoa, I think, has been the form back rower, along with Angus Crichton, in the competition. And he gives so much more than just work rate. He's got so much class. He's got a beautiful pass on him, and he's great under the high ball as well. So I think that battle will be Liam Martin's right side, and Eli Katoa, he's on the right as well. So whoever dominates those positions, they'll come out on top.
How important are the benches going to be in the grand final, Billy? Because obviously they're fast, they're physical games, grand finals, everything's at stake. And then it's the coaches, how they manage those benches. You've experienced it at an Origin level as a coach. How important is that going to be, and something for us to keep an eye on?
Well, they usually come on through that softened period of the game, say 20 minutes, 25 minutes into the game. There's a couple of players in the Melbourne Storm, on the Melbourne Storm bench, that I think can really open it up. Alec McDonald, he's got great leg speed, and he gets over the advantage line and plays the ball really quick. The other guy is Tyron Wishart. Now, he's had an incredible season, and if it wasn't for the star-studded spine of Melbourne, he'd be in a starting position for sure. But when he comes on, I think he can create a lot as well. He's got a great little passing game, but his number one strength is his running. So when guys come in off the bench, especially in these big games, it's that leg speed that you really notice. And if those two guys can come on, I think they can create that ruck speed. And then the likes of Harry Grant, Pappenhausen, Hughes and Munster can just jump off the back of them.
Do you think this has got the hallmarks of being a great grand final, Bill?
Without doubt. Without doubt. We've got the best playing the best, so we can hope for the best. And I think it's going to be a cracking grand final. I could sit here and debate why each team are going to win the game, and you can actually convince yourself that that's going to happen. So it's a flip of the coin. the preparation is going to be extremely important, and the start of the game is going to be extremely important. I think I just read today that Melbourne have won 19 from 19 when leading at half time, and they haven't got a great strike rate when they're losing at half time. So I think the start of the game to hit that scoreboard first and put that scoreboard pressure on the opposition is going to be crucial.
All right, well, let's look in your tip, your margin, and your Clive Churchill medalist for 2024.
Well, I think we all know my tip. My tip's going to be Melbourne. They're my team. But I think they can do it. I think they've got the system. I think they've got the system to match Penrith. I think Penrith's field position game is probably the best in the competition. But Melbourne's pretty close second. And I think they can match that. And when they do put that fatigue into the Panthers, I think they've got the key position players to strike. And the key position players have got a great ability to bring the other strike players into the game. You know, Ali Katoa, Nick Meaney, Jack Howarth, they're all playing a great role, and I think that's where it's going to be won or lost in those key positions. And Clive Churchill, it's a good one, isn't it? I just think Jerome Hughes has probably been too consistent, and he's the controlling factor in the Melbourne Storm team. So love the way he attacks the line, really direct, and he might even pick up a try or two. So Jerome Hughes for the Clive Churchill.
And my phone's going off, which is telling me that, Nelson Asofa-Solomona is going to the judiciary tonight. So they will fight and hope for a downgrade.
So that tells me that Melbourne have sat there and they've acquired a whole heap of evidence of prior situations, and they go, well, we've got a case here. They wouldn't be going up there if they felt like they were wasting their time, because it's too much of a distraction and a headache for the player going through it, for starters, and the club. So they obviously feel like they've got a case, and it'd be interesting. I can't wait to hear the evidence, because if Nelson can get off, that'll be a huge boost for the Melbourne Storm.
Yeah, it would be. But if he's out, it's going to be a huge blow for them too, because he's a big human, and he lays that platform for the Munsters and the Hughes to do their thing. So obviously a big night tonight at the NRL Judiciary. All right, that's the grand final out of the way. A couple of other issues to get your thoughts on, Bill. I think we all feel for Kevin Walters. No one likes seeing people lose their job. What have you made of the last few days and everything that's been said and written about Kevy's demise at the Broncos?
Like everyone else, I was pretty shocked. This time last year, Kevin Walters was preparing his footy team for the grand final, and they got so close to holding that trophy up, didn't they? So I think, like everyone, it was come as a bit of a shock for me. It just goes to show the brutal nature of the coaching occupation in the NRL. It's a tough old game, isn't it? And, to be that far away from leading your team to a premiership, and 12 months later, that job being taken away from you is a tough one. I think he's probably right to feel a little bit hard done by. I think there's been a lot that's gone on over the last 12 months. The retention of three key players was crucial. I think Farnworth, Flegler and Capewell were really valuable members of that 2023 squad. And then the other thing, they had a whole heap of injuries this year. You think of their three-star players in Reece Walsh, Adam Reynolds and Payne Haas, that they all played pretty much half a season. I think 14 games was the most that any one of those players played, and that makes it really difficult. And I understand that Munster and Cleary and those sort of guys have had time out of the game, but their clubs are in different situations than the Broncos. They just built to that level, and they just didn't handle all those little things overly well. But the other thing that we're not privileged to is what has gone on and what has come out of the review. Mm-hmm. So what have the players, what have the staff, what have all the key people within the Broncos said in the review that has formulated this decision? So, looking from the outside, it certainly looks hard done by Kev, but that's just the way the game is, and unfortunately, everyone is is in it, and yeah, it's a tough one for Kev.
Michael Maguire's in the box seat to take over from Kevin Walters, if we're to believe all of the reports and everything else. I'm intrigued as to what Broncos supporters and Queenslanders will think, given the current New South Wales coach will take over the Brisbane Broncos. Will that be a thing, do you think, Billy, or will they appoint him, given that he's an experienced coach, and is he the right man for the job?
Well, I don't know. I've never been a Bronco, so I don't really know how they would feel. You'd probably have to ask former Broncos players. You'd have to ask, the Broncos supporter bases.
Would Queenslanders care though?
Well, I'm not sure. If they support the Broncos, they're probably talking on behalf of their Bronco hat. It's never been done before. That's probably why it's spoken about. The Broncos captain is a former halfback for New South Wales.
True.
So the one thing I'm pretty sure of that is I don't think it'll worry Michael Maguire. Michael Maguire took over a pretty big club in Sydney, the South Sydney Rabbitohs. That attracts a lot of attention. He also coached New Zealand, and he's not a New Zealander. So I don't think that's going to worry Michael Maguire. This has happened all really quick, hasn't it? The one question that has been asked is has this been a decision before the decision of moving Kevin Walters on? Was this put in place prior to the decision made from Kevin Walters? And it's all happened really quick, and you'd have to ask that question, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. The other issue to talk about on the podcast today, Bill, is this Kalyn Ponga story, originally ruling himself out of representative contention. Then they sat down, him, his father, the Knights. They put out a statement saying, look, if he's fit, if he's healthy and mentally ready, he will be available for selection. This has been a bit of a mess, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think if Kalyn and his team had the opportunity, they would do things slightly different. And look, this has never really happened before. Someone that has been fit to play, but pull out. So, look, I can understand where Kalyn is coming from. I can understand him feel an obligation to give himself the best opportunity to be as fit and ready for the season next year. I understand that. They play a whole heap of footy. There's 30 weeks within the NRL season. Plus, you've got 3 origins in the middle of the year. Plus, you've got international footy. You start playing above 30 games a year. There's only 52 weeks in the year. I played 38 games one year, including trials and World Cups at the end of the year and all that sort of stuff. And the game is so demanding physically, and it's demanding mentally as well. I can understand where players are coming from, and I'm sure the game will look at this. At the moment, the rules are, if you're fit and healthy, you have to be available for selection. The thing that I question is, you're allowed to retire from rep football, but you have to play rep football if you're not retired. That's an interesting one. Yeah, I think the game's changed and the whole dynamic of the environment's changed at the moment. So they'll probably sit down and look at this, but this hasn't happened before. He's available now. He's probably not even guaranteed to get selected in the team. He'll probably be in the squad, but it'll be interesting how it all plays out from here. But I do understand both sides of it, and I don't lean one way or another.
Rugby league has had its fair share of iconic eras. But honestly, I can't get enough of the high-scoring, line-breaking, flick-passing, magic-rounding, origin drought-breaking, Vegas-flying, simply the best era of footy we're in right now. And with more stats, insights and markets than ever, it's the best time in sport, and Tab has the best app in sport. Tab, we're on. What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Well, thanks to Tab, we get into the greatest eras debate, and I like today's one. The time for sport is now. For free and confidential support, gamblinghelponline.org.au. What is the best, most memorable grand final entertainment? This is probably a difficult one for you to answer because for a lot of the grand finals, you're usually in the dressing rooms getting ready, aren't you, Billy?
Yeah. Underneath you, you're oblivious to what's going on outside, and you got your head in your preparation and your game, and it is great, but it's an event. Like the grand final day, I love grand final day. It's such a big build up. Channel 9 start their telecast from about 1 p.m. and it goes all the way through the lower grades. We get the NRLW grand final now, and then the entertainment. I actually went back and had a look at a few of the stars that have been on show. We've had Ricky Martin, Jess Malboy, Good Charlotte, Billy Idol, Amy Shark. There's been some beauties. You know who I'd love to get a bit of country. Could you imagine Luke Combs or Morgan Wallen singing at the NRL Grand Final? A bit of Alan Jackson would be nice too. So yeah, I don't know. There's been some beauties. Look, I love our anthem. I love Simply the Best. I think that's us. That's who we are. That's got to be played at some stage on grand final day. I'd be disappointed if Simply the Best wasn't a part of the grand final entertainment act.
I don't like doing the whole AFL versus NRL thing. You're allowed to follow both sports, but did you see Katy Perry on the weekend? Wasn't she good?
I did. She was great. But you know what? I thought their anthem was their best act as well. Up there, Kazali.
Yep.
The whole crowd was singing it. It's who they are. That's their song, and that should be played every AFL Grand Final day as well. Put the act after it, sure. That's the entertainment and that, but play what you are. That's the fabric of your game, and ours is Simply the Best. So, I look forward to hearing that on Grand Final day.
How good's Mike Brady's life? Come AFL Grand Final day, AFL rings him up. Champion, you're available to sing up there, Kazali, on Melbourne on the MCG. Little invoice goes in.
It's a bit like Daryl Braithwaite on Cox Plate Day, isn't it?
Exactly.
He sings horses every year.
Exactly. I think we've got the Kid Leroy performing, which will bring in a bit of a younger audience. Maybe even your kids might like the Kid Leroy to tune in before the footy as well.
Not quite Alan Jackson, but it'll do.
You love your country music. What about Morgan Evans? He used to do the... it's funny, yep. Morgan Evans, he used to do the pre-game entertainment at Newcastle Knights games.
And you know what? He created a song for Newcastle. I was up there the last couple of semi-finals. The semi-final last year, I think it was the first time that he performed it. What is it? I can... It had me singing it. I was a Newcastle fan that day. Honestly, it is the greatest thing. They've got their anthem, Newcastle, and long live Newcastle, or not long live the Knights, or something like that. It's a ripper.
Well, there's some homework for our podcast listeners. Go and whack it into YouTube or Spotify or whatever, and have a listen to Morgan Evans there. So there you are, the best, most memorable grand final entertainment. As long as it's not as bad as Meatloaf all those years ago. Poor old the Loaf. He'll never live that one down, the Loaf. That's the Tab Eras debate on the Billy Slater podcast. We move to the Billy M's, the most impressive team and the most impressive player from week 3 of the finals. Who were the standouts, Billy?
Well, there's only two to choose from in terms of the team. I'm going to go with the Melbourne Storm. I just think 48 points in a semi-final, not a semi-final, a preliminary final, to get into the grand final. They had a bit of everything. They had resilience at the start of the game. They lost Asofa-Solomona in the first minute or the first play of the game, and then they had to defend with 12 men. They leaked 6 points, and then they rejuvenated. Their stars really stood up, and yeah, I thought Melbourne were impressive. I thought Penrith were impressive as well, but I'll stick with the Storm.
Who was the standout performer individually?
I look at the players. I look at the players that really perform when the game's on the line. I think they're the players to really admire, and the guy that stood up when the game was on the line for Melbourne was Ryan Papenhuyzen. I thought his first half was the difference and the reason why that they went in with a healthy lead at half time. He scored the first try. The way that he accelerated onto the football and and just blew the space between Angus Crichton and Luke Cleary apart. I thought that was an incredible way to get his team back level. And then he set up the next 2 tries. The little flick pass to Nick Meaney, who set Jerome Hughes up. And then he turned defence into attack when Xavier Coates caught the ball with a 7-tackle set. They raced to the 20-metre mark, and he was the one that hit the space and set Jack Howarth up. I just think when the game was there, and that was the game really, the Roosters were behind the 8 ball after that. And Ryan Pappenhausen, he was in the thick of it. So, yep, he's the player of the week.
Couple of quick questions from listeners before we go. This first one is from Will. Hey, Billy, what's the build-up to a grand final like? How do you prepare for such a big moment? When do the nerves start kicking in? And do you try and enjoy the week? That one from Will.
Absolutely, all of the above. It's an incredible week, Will. I don't know. These players, they've been going since November last year. And every day they've been pushing and pushing. They're sore. They get out of bed. They go and train. They do the same thing day after day, all for this. And now they get the opportunity to refine their game, and they get their opportunity to go and put it on show on the biggest stage. And that's the enjoyable part of it. The nerves, absolutely the nerves are there. Every big game that I played in, I was nervous. And I still remember staying at the Pullman Hotel across the road from a core stadium, looking out my window on grand final day and seeing all the people rolling into a core and having to wait until that evening to go and perform. And that's where the nerves are. The wait is the nervous part for me. And these players, they'll have their process throughout the week. And while they're in that, they're good. And then when they have their downtime, that's when your mind starts ticking and you start thinking about things. And when your mind wanders to the uncontrollables and the results and all that, and that's when it gets nervous. And the time that the nerves stop is when the whistle blows. Or actually, for me, when I got in the dressing sheds, that I could start putting my boots on and I could start getting ready for the game. That's when I felt most comfortable.
Great stuff. And one here from Luke. Billy, who's your bet to take out the Dally M, and who might be the smoky on the night?
I think Jerome Hughes will win the Dally M. I just think he has been the one constant throughout the season for the Melbourne Storm. Those key positions that we've spoken about a lot today have had different times of the year. They've had injuries and time out of the game. Munster's had a big layoff with his groin. Pappenhausen's been out. Harry Grant's been through this Origin series and a bit of time out as well. So I think he's had a consistent year enough to win the Dally M. I don't know if he's a smoky, but I think the guy that will come close will be James Tedesco. He's had one of his best years of late, and I think his numbers are right up there. He's had 17 tries, played 25 games, James Tedesco. A couple of them have been semi-finals, but that's a lot of footy, and he only played the one Origin, so he's played 2 games for the Roosters in and around that Origin series. I just think he's going to poll well, because he's been front and centre of why the Roosters were where they were on the ladder. And I just think he's going to poll well. So I hope Jerome Hughes gets it, because I think he deserves it. But I think James Tedesco will be right up there. All
right, and before we get out of here, NRLW Grand Final, it'll be decided between the Sharks, who upset the Broncos yesterday, and the Roosters. They beat the Knights 25 points to 16. So Sharks-Roosters in the NRLW Grand Final, Bill.
I didn't get to see the Roosters-Knights game, but I called the Broncos-Sharks game. And the Broncos have been my pick all year. They've been incredible. The Sharks did not give them an inch. Gave them absolutely nothing. They were ruthless with their ball carrying, and then their defence was first class. I don't know where the Roosters sat, because I know they've got a quality team, but the Sharks, they played semi-final footy, and if they can replicate that performance, they'll go a long way to holding up the trophy.
Fantastic. Well, before we get out of here, big thank you to Ram Trucks and Tab for sponsoring the Billy Slater podcast this year. You've been brilliant again. Great man. Been good seeing you on telly and doing the podcast with you this year as well.
So have you, Levy, and look forward to seeing you on Grand Final Day. You'll be working for 2GB and I'll be there for Channel 9. It'll be a wonderful day and appreciate all your hard work throughout the year as well.
And we should say a big thank you to our great mate Peter Basaltis, the Danny DeVito of Rugby League, for hosting the Billy Slater podcast regularly throughout 2024 as well. Thank you very much for listening. It's great having the insights from one of the game's champion players and champion men, and we look forward to your company soon, not only on the telly but on the radio. Thanks for listening to the Billy Slater podcast.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights, action, 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast, get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour, grab a seat on the couch for that. And of course, my favourite, Freddie in the Oak.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm, subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.